Hey, how's it going? First off, I'd like to thank my Patreon supporters for making this video possible. If you'd like to become a Patreon supporter, the link is in the description below. Today we're going to take a look at the Pluto valve. I'm going to show you how to tear it all the way apart and clean it. This is important if you are using any additives in your water. If you're using xanthan gum, glycerin, borax solution, latex paint, any of those things or any combination of those things, you may find yourself in a situation where your valve gets gummed up. I know I found myself in this situation, and it can be a little scary at first because, well, your valve quits working. To do this, you're going to need some thread seal tape or Teflon tape, a Phillips head screwdriver, and an adjustable wrench or a different wrench for taking this nut off. So let's get started. First things first, I like to take the battery out. So just do that on the back. I don't really know that this is necessary, but I like to do that. Next things up, we're going to take this nut off of here. It might be a little bit stiff at first if this is your first time doing this, but then it just comes off real easily. Set all this stuff to the side so you don't lose it. Then the electronic board here just slides right off. And we'll set that over there. Now, there's these two screws here that we need to take off. Be careful with these. Take your time. Do not use a drill. Use a screwdriver. They are brass and can be damaged very easily. They might be a little bit stuck the first time you do this, but in time, they will just come right out. Once you have these screws out, the next step is to take off this plate. Just slides right off. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and take this piece out. Now, there's an O-ring on there that kind of holds it in, so you might have to wiggle it a little bit to get it out. And then you can clean in here if you need to. And then this piece goes inside of there. So this goes in here like this. And there's a spring on there. Make sure you don't lose the spring. That's what makes the valve work. And then that's all there is to it. So I usually take a Q-tip or something and clean down in this area here. That's where the water flows through, and that's where it tends to get gunked up in my experience. Now, sometimes there are tougher clogs, so take it all the way apart. It's also possible for there to be gunk inside of here as well. Now, when this comes from the factory, this is hot glued on. It might be a little bit difficult. You might need a knife to cut through the hot glue and get this off of there, but once you get the seal of the hot glue broken off, it just unscrews. Same thing with this. Now, you also might need to use your wrench. It might be a little bit difficult to get a hold of that and twist it out of there. But once you get this done, you'll find that this is just a plastic box that allows the water to flow through. And without all these other pieces, it's really pretty simple. Helps if I adjust the wrench the right direction. And there you have it. So sometimes you find that you may need to soak this in hot water to get all the gunk out of it, but that's really all there is to cleaning it. You can blow some air through here if you need to get the the extra effect of the air pressure. Now, something to note, this arrow actually, I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but there's an arrow right here. It's actually pointing up. So that means that it's pointing towards the top. I would think that it would be the water flow, but that's not the case. It's actually just pointing up for top, not the direction of the water flow. So now that you have this thing all the way apart, you've taken the time to go through and clean it, it's time to put it back together. First things first, we got to get this old Teflon tape off of here and put new Teflon tape on there. Sometimes this can be tricky, and sometimes it just peels right off. This isn't going to be one of those times. So I usually use a small screwdriver or a pick of some sort to just get down in the threads and get that out of there. Okay, there you have it. As you saw, that was a little bit tedious. For whatever reason, this one came off easier than the other one, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. Now, we've got to put the new tape on there. These are right-handed threads, which means you twist to the right to make it tight. That means you want to put this on so that when you're twisting it, it tightens the tape onto the threads instead of loosening it. So I usually do about 2 wraps, 1.5, 2 wraps. Just make sure you get it on there good around all the threads. This is what's going to keep it from leaking. You could also use hot glue as it comes from the factory, but I think this tape works great. So once you have that on there, make sure you have the arrow pointing up, and we'll put this on the bottom. It's so backwards to me. You would think that the arrow would be the direction of the water flow, but now once you have this Teflon tape on here, it might be a little bit difficult to screw back on, just because it's got that added mass in there with the threads. It's good though, means you're getting a good seal. Keep the water from leaking. Do the same thing with the top part. Now, this piece does come out of here as well, but I really don't ever have a reason to take it all the way apart and out of there. As you can see, it still has the factory hot glue on there. I found that taking it apart, as far as I've shown you, is generally good enough. All right, now that we have that all the way back together, we're going to go ahead and put the rest of it back together. So, just the way we took it apart, put this piece back in first. Now, depress the spring and make sure that seal catches in there, and that will hold itself in place. And then we'll put this plate back on, put the screws back in. Now, I like to get them started and then tighten them down once they're both in a little ways. You don't want them super tight, and remember, you don't want to strip the threads out. Just tight enough to hold the plate in place. Just so it's snug. There we go. Then we slide the electronics back on. Put the nut back on there. Now you don't want to get this too tight either, just so it's snug, nothing too crazy. And that's all there is to it. Put the battery back in, make sure it works. You'll be able to tell if it works, if it makes that familiar clicking noise. Let's see what we got going on here. Seems to be working just fine. I put the microphone down there next to it so you guys could hear the familiar click. And there you have it, folks. That's how you tear apart and clean your Pluto valve. Thanks for watching. Please check out my other videos. Good luck with your water drops. If you have any questions, feel free to put them down in the comments below, and have an awesome day.